You are not your thoughts. I know for a lot of us, we can become really identified with the thoughts that come up in our heads. And these thoughts can be images of scenarios that maybe bring us a lot of pain and agony and frustration and regret or guilt. It could be a memory from your past, or it could be just a scenario into the future that if you imagine happening, it just creates way too much distress, a lot of panic. And over time, we start to grab a hold of these language patterns, and then it starts to shape and control the way we behave and the way we act out in the world. And if we think about the words we use and how much weight they carry, just reflect back on a time in your life when you've had someone who you've had great respect for, or maybe someone you've loved, admired. Could be your father figure, your mother figure, or a parental guardian, doesn't matter. And they maybe passed on to you some kind words, some words of encouragement, and you felt that absolutely hit you and ignite your passion, ignite your self-belief. But it's also, if you know, words have the power of the opposite effect, where you can have someone say something terrible to you, attacking you, insulting you, berating you, making you feel less than, and how heavy those words can feel and how easily it can drag you down. But oftentimes we go about our lives and we never really pay too much attention to the words we say to ourselves. And they can go very unnoticed. You don't really catch them. It's hard to catch. And so, for example, you can be participating in some sort of, let's say, group activity. And oftentimes when there's challenge that's put in front of you, there's this voice, these words that come up and say, don't mess this up. If you mess this up, your teammates are going to get upset. And if your teammates are upset, they might not pick you again for the next game, or you might not get invited to the next party. So don't mess this up. Make sure you get it. Make sure you get it. And when you imagine saying those words that bring up this heavy amount of emotion, and again, oftentimes, more often than not, these words trail all the way down into the unconscious, where you're sitting with emotional knots within you. They contain memories and trauma and pain, and they have a story around it. That's where often these words go. But we can't catch that in the moment. All we experience is the symptom effect. All we experience is the language pattern that causes us to go in this downward effect, this downward spiral. And then we start to identify, and it grips us and find it very difficult to escape. And so the first thing you can try to do to get yourself at least out of that compound effect, the negative compound effect, is by doing what I call a language audit. I do this with all my clients. I did this with myself, and it really does something incredible. So what you want to do is grab a journal. You can really grab anything. Like I just use something like this, and hopefully you guys can focus on it. I really like I like my journals to be a little more symbolic and not just so simple as this one right here. Let me show you. So this one's like a really simple, just for my work, basic note taking. I find like when it comes to something as important as self-development and soul and ego integration, which is what I focus on, it needs to have some level of symbolism, something a little more meaningful and powerful, rather than just like something random. But have yourself a journal, put it by your bedside, or if it's small enough, you can carry it with you. And what you want to do is pay attention to the languages you use on yourself. Now, when do those words come up? That's hard to say because it's based on your living situation and the way you experience and the way you do things. But for example, let's say you find yourself in an environment where if you're at a party, a group activity, a group event, you find your language in your mind is stay off to the corner. Stay off to the corner. Don't interact with anybody. Don't participate in anything. That would be an example. Or before a big game, like a big sporting event, you're about to compete, and your mind starts to say, oh man, I don't think I'm going to lose. I don't think I'm going to do well. I woke up feeling tired today. I woke up feeling frustrated, a little nervous. So you want to catch the languages you use. And when you start to write down the language, you want to ask yourself, does this language, do the words I use here lift, give me energy, or do they take away energy? Now, obviously, there are words that can give you gratitude, love, excitement, passion, of course. But at first, you want to just have a general idea of how do they function and how do they feel. And so by simply saying, does this give me energy? Does this give me motivation, excitement? If the answer is no, then what you do is write down that word and you can put just a big slash across the center of it. And what you're going to try to do now is, let's say as practice, you did this for a couple weeks, you have a couple words you've jotted down, a couple sentences and phrases you say to yourself that you go, you know what, I don't want to say this to myself anymore. It's not doing me any good. You start scratching them out. And then when an opportunity comes up, when normally those words start to really seep through and start to kind of jump into your mind, all you want to do is do multiple deep breaths, deep inhales, deep exhales. Then you want to ensure that you do not grab a hold of it and tangle with it. Don't bring it down, right? So if you have an environment and you start to feel an emotion, something triggers that emotion, words start to want to come up, all you want to do is allow the emotion to hit, but do not resist it. Don't fight it. Don't try to suppress it. Don't do any of that. Allow the energy to come in, the emotion to happen, and let it just sort of go through its course. It will pass if you breathe and relax through it. Don't try to think any images. Don't try to think any words. Allow it to pass through. At first, it's going to be quite the battle. It will be quite the battle. But over time, the muscle will get easier. The muscle will get stronger, and then it will become easier. You'll be able to catch yourself a lot more. And then when you start to catch yourself a lot more, then eventually what you'll start to notice is there'll be some of those sentences and phrases and stories that you say, you find extremely difficult to let go. That they really stick around longer than they should. And when you get to that, that is now the best place to be. Because now that is the place that is telling you deep within you, this is a problem we have to take a little more seriously, a little more investigating. And that's when we dive into the unconscious realm. We dive into the inner child spirits and try to understand what is going on, what emotional knot do I live with that's a little bit tight, really tight, that I can't let go. Because anything kind of outside of that isn't really affecting you as much, this practice of writing down these words and sentences and phrases and scratching them out and not interacting with them will start to go away. They really will. They'll start to vanish away. You won't have to deal with it as much anymore. But the ones that linger, those are the big battles that you're going to have. I know they're difficult, and oftentimes we don't want to look at them. We really don't. But if there's anything I've learned in my life, going from having a big passion in a sport, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a black belt now, and I wanted to be a world champion. And then one day, woke up and totally just passion just left, and that left me in a state of identity crisis. There's one thing I learned during that process is that the language that I have been using has contributed to my negative momentum. Let's just put it that way. Pushing me in a direction that I did not want to go. It was the language that I used. And then on top of that, if there was particular language that I was using that I found I could not let go of it, it was most certainly due to a particular trauma, a particular complex that I was dealing with that I've just been trying to avoid. And it was once I confronted that and dealt with it that everything started to really get into alignment. And when I talk about alignment, I focus a lot of my work on ego and soul integration. Having these two pieces of you have beautiful communication back and forth, constant feedback That way you can then have your ego be the expression of your soul rather than the soul be suppressed or fragmented. And then now the ego is just trying to pick up the pieces, trying to make sense of what's going on, but is living with inner conflict. And so that would be probably hands down one of the most important things. Attune to the language that you use. Really think about what it is you're saying to yourself. Remove them from your vocabulary. You'll start to feel a lot better. And you remove them by not tangling with them. Don't tangle with these thoughts. Don't tangle with the emotion. Allow it to pass through. The less you do, the better it will work. And so don't grab a hold of them. And then once you start eliminating a lot of them, one by one, you'll eventually come by the largest dragon, your largest dragon. And that is the beginning of the you that you never knew was there. But it's always been there. It's just been pushed aside for a little while. But I promise on the other end of that rough experience that you're going to experience life all over again. Colors will be brighter. The birds will sound the most beautiful that you've ever heard. You'll be okay with a lot of things. You'll be calm. You'll be relaxed. You'll be okay with the direction. And then you'll start to really know what it is you're supposed to do and what it is you're supposed to be. So if this resonated with you and you want to be part of a community that focuses itself on rebuilding purpose back into their life, rediscovering who they are, and you want to be a part of that community, go ahead and click that button below. It'll send you over to my website. Sign up to my free monthly newsletter. And in that newsletter, I'm going to be sending you, just as a gift, as a thank you for being a part of it, my 3-step identity rebuilding guide. And it's something that it's a community that I wish I had during my time of identity loss after my dream had faded and left. It was something I really needed at the time, but couldn't really find it. So this is an absolute pleasure for me to give to you. So thank you very much, everyone. I'll see you in the next video.